And here we go. Yes, we are live. So, welcome once again to Youth Rugby Discussion. We are primarily based in the U.S. Northeast, so we focus on rugby union, and we're a collection of parents and administrators and just interested folk that sit around and discuss rugby. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about engaging kids and parents and all the different myriad in ways and how that becomes critical important in every way. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. We can put a voice to the name. Brad, do you want to kick us off?
My name is Brad. I am the co-owner of Centaurs Rugby, and I am a full-time sports coach.
Hey, this is Chris. I am, among other things, rugby dad.
And I am Daniel. I coach with the Barbarian Youth.
I'm Kate McCabe, and I'm primarily working with Belmont High School girls rugby, but also Boston Women's Youth Rugby.
I'm Matt Pamela. I'm the head coach of Marshfield High School boys rugby, and I'm the club secretary for the South Shore Anchors Rugby Club.
Hey, this is Shaggy. I'm a coach of the South Shore Sharks, also president.
I'm Skylar, high school rugby player for the Boston Irish Wolfhounds.
Sure. So today we're going to be talking about how, I guess you could kind of maybe talk about recruiting, but really how to engage new players, new kids in the beautiful game of rugby, and how to really bring their parents on board alongside them. And then, once you have a club that's up and running and you have a core set of kids and families, how do you then build on that program? How does recruiting change once you have a program in place? So those are the two pieces of this discussion today. And I think we're going to start with the first part about how to recruit and engage kids and parents when starting a program. Like what kinds of information do you think needs to be communicated to kids and families?
One thing that, one thing I think that's interesting is like those are a little bit two different things, right? The things that get kids excited about the game and staying in the game maybe a little bit different than the parents. Than the parents. So one idea I had there is like, hey, take one at a time. What do I want to say to a kid who might be a prospective rugby player? What's our message to them? I'm sorry I interrupted, Dan, before I get into what that message is. What were you going to say?
No. I love that. I just wanted to sort of echo what we heard in the past from Jeff Cares of Rhode Island. He mentioned that being able to have kids, already enthusiastic about starting a rugby club opens up a lot of doors rather than cold calling, a high school and trying to get a program started. So kind of Chris, exactly what you're saying. Like, what do you do? How do you engage? What's the kind of, what are the steps you would take? And then that kind of helps put your dominoes in place. So when you're ready to go, you can just push them over and they'll help each other build momentum, right?
Yeah, right. One thing I'll say, I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I agree that one of the idea, if you can get a nodule of one or several kids to get something started, and especially if it's in a school, you'll go a long way. But again, either when recruiting those kids or for those kids, what information might they share with their friends? One thing just jumps to mind, and we got to talk about it first, is welcoming, right? One thing of the many that sets rugby apart is the welcoming environment we have, probably more so than anything, and especially true at the high school level. When kids are in high school, a lot of kids are maybe, um, you know, haven't developed the skills in a particular sport as people start to specialize in sports. But one thing is for sure, unlike a lot of other sports, everybody's going to be welcoming into our rugby community. And it's one thing that sets us apart and one message that everybody needs to hear loud and clear. You're welcome here to play rugby. There's a spot for you, no matter what your size or shape is, or or what your history is. We'll find a way for you to play rugby with us, and that's probably message number one. I wish that every kid could know that, especially any kid who's maybe turned away from sports as it's got specialized, and maybe they didn't have a a sport that they're specialized in. That there's a spot for them with rugby. So I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody wants to expound on that.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to take a lot more time, add a lot more time just repeating what you just said, but I do want to make sure that I say I completely wholeheartedly agree with what you just said. The community is amazing, and it's kept amazing by the coaches helping people understand that that is the ethos of rugby. And I think even if we didn't do that, as you mentioned, rugby itself requires different body types. Now, we could get a little bit nitpicky. We could talk about how sevens is more like it's more specialized in the spectrum of rugby, and that might not be as true. But you still need props, and you still need hookers, and you still need some some players that do have some specific roles in it. But I just agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of
and
the slogans I tell my kids when recruiting is nobody gets cut, everybody plays.
yep, I think a lot of that will resonate with a lot of folks
Yep.
too. Yeah. And you know what? It's not just that kind of welcoming, right? It's like the culture and the environment, right? Right? They're just much more open and friendly in my experience. I think that's a big part, and just even I think it's part of what you want to build a culture of a team around is that welcoming environment, and expands beyond just, hey, you're welcome to come on this team. You're big and tall, and you can play number 4 or 5. It's also about, like, just part of our values. And it's one of the reasons we all love rugby, I think. And it's also one of the ways that you can build an organization of not just winning rugby players, but just good kids and good members of society.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really interesting to me about like new players, regardless of whether they're coming into an existing program or when we were just starting our program at Belmont, was this idea that like kids have an idea of what it means to be part of the lacrosse program or what it means to be part of track or like who the good person is on each of those teams. And what I really love is being able to say, none of you are good. Everyone's starting out at exactly the same spot. You guys are all like pee-wee soccer players. Like you have no idea about this game. You're going to learn together. You're going to grow as a family. It's such an empowering message to be like, nobody comes in with an advantage, right? Like everyone's learning something new and you have the opportunity to grow together. It's a pretty beautiful message.
Absolutely, and I think another aspect that's just immediately visible. So if you are considering starting a club, a high school age club, whether it's community or it's tied to a school, yeah, these things are absolutely key. And I think one thing that is also really important, in line with what you're saying, is the respect that the teams show one another at the end of the game. Now, that's something that I was completely impressed. It blew me away in high school, because in the no matter what sport, in the younger grades, you line up and you high five the other team, right? You shake the hands of the other team. But then as you start getting older and older, that drops away. You don't see that really, and I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I haven't seen it. But that continues with rugby, and it continues to the absolute highest. So if you're looking, for ways of being able to recruit, get parents to come out to a game to watch. And as a coach, you better make sure that you are, continuing that aspect of the rugby ethos, and that is to, line up and what is it? High five, shake hands. You're not shaking hands. What is it? You're
Not anymore.
oh yeah. Not anymore. You're right. Not under COVID. But just that small, simple act of both teams at the end of the game clapping, handshaking each other off the field, or giving a low five. That is huge. But question to the high school, the folks that already run high school clubs, do you have some sort of, after the game, the host team gives the other team orange slices or sandwiches or something?
Mhm.
I have with the teams I play on a very regular basis and that I'm friendly with, we try to host. Like Needham, for instance, always does a great job whenever we go up there. They'll have a stack of pizza, and their field actually has a little pavilion right there. So we'll have like pizza and stuff afterwards. My facility makes it a little challenging, but with the teams we play all the time and the teams that do it for us, I try really hard to get a parent to organize that, whether it's bag lunches or pizzas or something, because I feel like it's a really super important part of rugby culture, at the college level and at the men's level. At the high school, as a high school like varsity style sport, it's challenging to organize, but like you're saying, the value there is uncountable. It's super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's super important. Either whether you're getting water for the visiting team at halftime or orange slices at the end of the game. I still remember how shocked and impressed I was the first game I played. And it was against Marshfield because it was Brookline. And then every time after, it became something to look forward to. And in high school, I'll be honest, we grabbed our oranges, and then we ran off to our own camps. It's like we're too shy of each other. We don't know how to deal with it, but it made a huge impression.
It's really funny because we definitely do. We share pizza at the end of every game. And I will say, there are other like Algonquin. All the girls make a bag lunch for one for themselves and one for an opponent, which I think is also amazing because it's like a grab bag. But what's fun about it is like the girls, like the older girls, will almost like pull aside the younger girls and be like, okay, so you're gonna go find the person who played opposite you,
Yep.
like go find the other loose head prop, go find whatever, and like give them a compliment and share a slice of pizza. Like it's really cute, but it's nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I like the way that shapes up. Interesting that I started a little while ago saying about the values of the values of the kids are different than the values of the parents, but everybody can get behind respect, a mutual respect for an opponent, and by the way, also like leaving it on the field. Rugby can be a pretty tough game on the field, but you're able to sort of flip a switch and then have this respect for your opponent and share a meal with them afterwards. I'm glad it works out that way. And one other, just like while we're on this, like this pyramid of rugby values, respect for the referee is another big one. I don't know if it's a recruiting element, but I think just while we're on this period, I think it's worth saying, like, I think it's just a real it's a benefit of rugby that I think parents can appreciate, and even still, everybody can appreciate the idea that we're respectful of our officials, and I think I'll just leave it at that.
I gotta add, I found it to be a challenge. So most of the players I get are kids who played some other sport and ended up not being quite good enough to continue, but they have that other sports culture kind of ingrained in them already. So a lot of it's youth football, and so the idea of like after the game being friendly to your opponent is so weird to them. And like you say,
Yep.
like even when I and the other coaches make an effort, often enough, 80% of the kids sit with their own team and only 20% mingle. But one of the things I tell them, if you're playing high school rugby in the United States, you're pretty much automatically a good college rugby player. If you go to the right program, some of these guys or girls are going to be your teammates. You're going to go to whatever college, the local community college or wherever, and there's rugby clubs everywhere. And some of these kids are going to be your teammates. And do you want them to remember that you were kind of, not a cool cat? Or do you want to remember like, oh yeah, dude, that's a guy, like he played and the game went like this. And afterwards he came up and we talked about him. Like that's the stuff you're going to remember. And then if you go on and play adult level, more of these guys will be your teammates. And some of your college teammates will be your opponents. like it ends up being the whole rugby family, not just your club or your team. I play year in and year out. I play against guys who I played with in college. And I tell them that, and they don't really hear what I'm saying. But then around college spring break, when my college players come home for a week and show up to a practice, and I have them like, "Hey, tell me about this," and I ask them loud questions so everybody's hearing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the guy who plays next to me is that kid from Brookline who used to beat the heck out of me, and the guy who plays out of him is the kid from Hanover," and then da da da, and they're like, "Actually, it's really cool playing with them," and so the younger kids hear it from the older kids, and all of a sudden now it's a thing. Like it's in. Like, all right, yeah, let's get to know these guys.
Yeah, they
awesome.
listen to each other. Hey, you just actually maybe sort of hit on something that does appeal to folks, that rugby is a sport that you're likely to continue on playing into college when you go to college, and you have a leg up, and you're not gonna get a scholarship, maybe you are, but you're gonna play in college, and maybe even beyond. And I'd say that's a huge selling point for kids and parents, is that this is a game that you're going to be able to stick with, and continue to play, and that's a really big deal. College in general, it's maybe a little bit different for girls and boys, but that idea of playing playing sport beyond high school is really appealing to a lot of players, and probably would be on my list of virtues and benefits of choosing to play rugby in high school. So it would be on our, it might be on our flyer. And I'm sitting here sort of picturing what a flyer looks like, or an article in the newspaper looks like. I think that would be one of them.
Interesting. I think
Yeah.
one thing I would say too is like along the lines of the kind of culture that we're maybe looking for, but also the kind of player that we're maybe looking for. That when I was trying to build a program, I was going to soccer games and hockey games and basketball games, and like seeing kids that were already playing sports. And like really trying to connect with those teams, or even just like making myself seen in that capacity, because like I want you to play basketball and hockey and soccer. Like this is, rugby should be something that you add to your athletic repertoire. It doesn't have to be the be all end all, so especially at the beginning, but I still do it. Like showing up to other sports to be like, oh, and wearing rugby stuff, and like that was a big way to build the program.
So I think something that you need to add is how you hold yourself. I think you guys kind of touched upon that. The concept of these are the skills that you will learn that will make you a better player in college and in life. So how you represent yourself, how you represent your team. Like you said, those players are going to be playing with you in college or professionally later on down the line. So I think that's a key aspect of holding yourself, and how you communicate, and how you take achievements and criticism and moving forward.
Yeah.
That's definitely important. I think that's important no matter what kind of program you're trying to build, whether it's a rugby team or a soccer club or even a sub shop.
Yeah, I just feel like rugby is more important with it, just because it's one of those things that is like mandatory. Like, I know when I played in college, it was just like that's the expectation of how you're supposed to hold yourself. And if you don't, oh yeah, your teammates will stick up for you, but you're probably going to get scorned afterwards of how you represented the team.
Yep.
So that doesn't really hold true to other sports, though.
And these are all fantastic things for if you can somehow voice this, if you can find, as you said, as Chris was saying, find how you would put it in a pamphlet. Some of these things you can't put in a pamphlet, you just have to show it. These are the key things that parents need to be able to see, because that gets the parents engaged. You just need to get them out to the games, or out where this is expressed and this is happening, to get the parents on board, because this is exactly the type of thing that any parent, particularly if they're if they're seeing their kids engaged in this, is huge. Chris, to your point, not only the respect, but kind of like the reverence that we have for our referees. Our referees in rugby is like the weather. no matter what the call is, you're not going to yell and scream and throw fits at the weather. That's just the way it is. You just accept it and you move on and you play. And we get usually just one referee. Now, in the modern game, at higher levels, you get 3 referees or more. But for the most part, it's one. That's their that's who they are. That's their job. And no matter how big or how small that referee is, we don't have we may have Hakalis in some referees might be like Hawkins, but we don't have big gigantic referees that shove around the players. No, it's just the reverence that we have for them. They are the weather. They make a call and that's it. It's lightning. You just react to it. And these are
I'll be honest with you. I think these are all great points, but I feel like these are things that I can't explain to people adequately. You know what I mean? They're things that parents and players have to just see.
Yep.
When I have my initial parent meetings, the kind of stuff I usually talk about, I usually give them some sort of rugby primer, like a Rugby 101, and you can find a ton of those on the internet. I found a couple good ones. I explained to them yeah, everybody plays offense, everybody plays defense. It's not like football where you come out for a stretch. Like once you're in, you're in, and once you sub out, unless it's for a specific situation, injury wise, that's it. Your game's over. So you stay and you play the whole time, because that's a new concept to a lot of them. I talked to them about injury rates. I'm very upfront about injury rates. I actually have a really good research study I usually share with them, called, hold on, I've got it actually right here.
Oh, yeah, we need that.
Yeah, I'd love to see
While-
that.
While you're at it, though, Matt, I lost it.
It's funny. I think to Matt's point, I'm actually surprised at the type of things that we're talking about right here, because it's not the things that I thought we were going to be talking about when trying to talk to a parent. And I think, Matt, you're kind of grounding us back and saying, okay, pretend you're sitting in front of a parent. What are the things you're going to be talking to a parent about? And you're right. Everybody plays. You're there the whole time. It's a dynamic sport. It's kind of like soccer. It's kind of like basketball. It's kind of like a hockey. It's not like football. Every player gets a chance to make all of the calls, whether they have the ball or they don't have the ball. Not just the quarterback, or not just the striker, not just the center forward. Everybody has a chance to be the quarterback in a sense. You're only limited by whether you can kick, pass, how good you are. So those are the things that I would think I would be talking to a parent to try to engage and be like, look, this is the sport, for your child. But the stuff that just we kicked off was the kick that we started talking about are the things that I actually feel very passionate about rugby. But you're right, it's not the type of stuff. It's like they have to come out to the first practice, right, or the first game to see it. Is that where you were going with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The stuff I talk about, injury rates, positions, when and how we practice, the very low expense of the sport. It's not like hockey and lacrosse where you're going to have to buy new pads every year, every 2 years, because the kids keep growing. I talk about the crossover skills between other sports. Soccer players' field awareness, football players' toughness, wrestlers' core strength. And every sport has crossover into rugby. I talk about the need for all body sizes. Slow,
Yep.
fast, big, tall, skinny, wide. We need all of them if we're going to be successful. I talk about the inclusiveness of it, but again, that's something that they can't really understand what I'm trying to say until they see it, until they see the football star, buddy with the nerd who's never played a sport before. It's that's the kind of stuff I usually hit them with early.
Yeah, it's interesting that we did go down values, and the thing that I forgot, by the way, is everybody gets a chance to touch the ball and everybody gets a chance to score, like Daniel was saying. It is interesting that we went to values and we didn't go to what really appeals to somebody off the bat. I think it's just fun. Like, rugby's fun, and one of the things I was saying is, I have this dream in my head that we're talking about a pamphlet or a PowerPoint presentation, and all those things you just said were really good for both the parents and the kids, Matt. But what about the fun, man? What about you're gonna get dirty and you're gonna be hitting people and getting hit and it's just fun. And are we able to convey that? Are we able to I'm just kind of picturing this old school picture of people in the mud, fighting for the ball at the bottom of a ruck or something like that. I just think that's something that I think that appeals to most of the kids who we want to bring into this game, right? If you can get behind some fun in the mud, then this sport's for you. Does that ring a bell?
I
mean,
I say that all the time. When I was young and when I was in high school, rugby, I played it, but it was certainly not my best sport. I was a much better wrestler, but and I played football too, and I've done this and that and other stuff. But rugby is by far the most fun I've had playing any sport.
Yeah, I would say, just to your point, Chris, it's when we bring the kids in, it's the first step it's an introduction to a lifestyle. Conveying that point, it's really that simple. You can take it as far as you want. It's just a new way of enjoying a sport, though, because it is so well rounded, and you can be in it, in and out of it as much as you want, and still you can still be that. You can still be, get in a game and get muddy, whenever you want, whether it's going to be in college or in, as an adult. So just conveying that it is an easy entry for something that you can have your entire life is something that's that's something I try to tell the kids. I'm like, you're in it, you're beginning, you can just now you're in it forever. You can quit tomorrow, quit for 5 years, but you can just come back, whenever you want. It'll be exactly the same. You introduce them to that, to that camaraderie, and they can take it as far as they want.
And
Yeah.
another thing, to engage parents and kids also, that I've used in the past to talk to folks is, and I'm trying to find I've tried to find a good way to have the discussion, to bring it in. I usually say it that the laws of rugby are written, if you read it, it tells you, you know what you're not allowed to do. So these are the penalties. In most cases, these are the things that you must have. But for the most part, it's this is a penalty. This is a penalty. This is not. You're not allowed to do this. So the rule book is written in a very open ended, as opposed to other books. I've read the soccer one and some football one, and they are actually written very differently, which basically means that it's a very creative sport. You're really limited only by your creativity and your ability. And so I've mentioned this to parents, like if you, or to people, if you or your child really want to be really good at a small aspect in rugby, you want to be able to carry the ball and set a good ruck. Okay, or you want to be, and you want to be like, on the other side of the fence. You want to be a good defender. You want to be like the classic hooker or something. You just ruck. You set up rucks, and you defend, and you create rucks. You could make a career out of doing that alone. But if you want to advance a little bit more and be like, you know what, I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to pass it, and I'm going to set somebody else up, or I'm going to take on kicking, or start thinking more strategically. You can advance with rugby, and you can bring it as far as you are physically capable, and also as far as your creativity allows you. Or if you really want to be very specialized at just a few things, like the classic sort of running back, you can do that. You can do that. You'll probably want to advance more. You want to be able to do more. You want to be a more rounded player. But I know plenty of players who have made their career of being really really great at like three or four things, and that's it. And they've played rugby their entire lives. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you don't have to. One of the beauties of rugby is you don't have to be a star to be good.
Yes.
Like you watch NFL or NBA, and the more stars you get on the field, the better the team. In rugby, that's not necessarily always true.
Absolutely. I know plenty of guys that cannot pass to the right. They pass left only. So if you're on the right side, you're not going to get a pass. And if you're on the left side, you keep your eye open. So if you're on the right side, you set up to ruck on them. If you're on the left side, okay, maybe you take that extra half or extra meter because they might actually pass it to you. And that's part of being a team, and it's just hilarious, after playing with them for 3 or 4 or 5 years, like, where their limitations are. They're never going to pass to the right, period. Or this guy, every time he gets the ball, or this girl, every time they get the ball, they're going to fake to run out for one step, and then they're going to cut back in right against traffic. They always go right into traffic. They always go right into traffic. So I actually love those players that I play with, because I know they're going to go into a ruck, and I know exactly how to how to time it, and I use them as a battering ram because I know exactly how many steps they're going to take. If they take any more steps, then they're in clear open field, and they're just like, what do I do with this ball? They just hug it. They're like, okay, I'll just keep running until somebody tackles me. It's hilarious. So
Yeah,
that's another thing that I use to engage parents. It's, your kid will be able to take rugby as far as they're capable physically and as far as they're willing, creatively.
I don't
Yeah.
mean to like do a hard right from that, because
Go.
I fully agree with what you just said. But I was thinking about other ways that I like, especially at the beginning of our program, like how did we communicate with parents? You can trust us with your kids. And a large part of that conversation was an introduction to who we were as coaches, and all of the steps that we had taken to legitimize ourselves as coaches, like taking all of the USA Rugby certification courses, excuse me. And like how long we'd been playing, and all of the different ways we'd been involved in rugby. And that was like my full coaching staff. And I think that more than anything, knowing that you have adults in charge that love this sport, but that are qualified to design a program and like care about passing this on to the next, players of that sport is really important to parents. So I think that's a big part of that conversation is, who are we? Why should you trust us?
Yeah, really good point, Kate. As I was sitting here, actually, like we accidentally, like I don't think it was intentional. We accidentally talked about, rugby values. That's really not how to recruit to kids. What I was thinking when I started talking, but we just keep on going back to all these great rugby values that I think appeal so largely to the parents. We talked about respect and camaraderie, and we haven't really talked yet about hard work and confidence that's built. And we talked even about prospects for continuing to play beyond school, and some of the other values. Like, wow, this is an easy thing to sell parents, but one of the things that they're interested in is, who are you? And the other thing is, like, parents do need to be sold on what some of their perception of rugby is, what they heard that their niece played in college, or what they saw in college a while back. So how do you guys talk about parents who maybe saw the rowdier side of rugby maybe a couple decades ago, or how's that conversation going? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. From my perspective, it's funny how many of my parents, and particularly like the fathers, have played rugby. It's a lot. So there's a lot of girls that I have on my team whose fathers have played rugby. It like warms my heart, because my dad played rugby in college, and that's a big part of why I was drawn to the sport. But nobody ever brings up the like they do when their kids get to like their senior year of high school and they're thinking about playing in college, like then they might like wink, wink, nod, like kind of bring it up. But when their kids are freshmen or sophomores, like they're just excited for them to have the opportunity. And it's very clear, because it's built into a high school, that that's not even a little bit something that would ever come up.
Yeah, quite the opposite, actually, I would say.
Yes. So it does kind of remove that from it.
Yeah, the only times that rugby's bad reputation in this country has come up for me is not dealing with parents and recruits or anything, but dealing with administrators and rec department and athletic directors and things like that.
Hmm.
And I tell them like how much the sport has progressed. So I started playing in 92, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I think 92, maybe 91. And I was like, yeah, you're right. When I started playing in the 90s, it was insane. The stuff that happened in games and sometimes after games was quite what would probably be considered extreme now. But the rules have changed. The game is remodeled. It's professional now. You know, none of that stuff is tolerated. It's just, even the style of play. If you play the style I was taught in high school currently, you're going to get murdered. Like you can't keep your forwards in tight just to ruck. You got to spread them out the field. They have to be able to run. When I played in high school, I don't think I was I played for 3 years, and I don't think I was past the ball a single time. Right? That forwards just didn't carry the ball. We rucked and we tackled, and if a ball bounced in our hands, great, run with it. But that was it. And the game has grown and progressed and moved past that. And I've gotten some adults to believe me, and others have chosen not to. So.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I think I've heard anecdotes about it. I think I coached in a college town, so I think I had to deal with it a while back. This was quite a few years ago. But on the whole, like, I do think that things have changed, and we even have special training to make sure that we are we have the best reputation we can. So I'm glad to hear that that's really it's really not something we have to deal with, and nor should we, because I agree. These kids that are playing rugby in high school, it's relatively professional and clean and disciplined.
The perfect example is rucking. It's the perfect example. Nowadays, what does rucking mean? Well, go over the tackle player, bind on, protect the ball, right?
Yeah.
And I think, any modern player, any current player will tell you, yeah, that's rucking. When I was playing in high school, doing that didn't have a name. Rucking was using your boots to move players who were on the ground.
That was rucking. You're right. You rucked them out.
That's literally what the word meant.
That was what it meant.
Using your boots
right.
to encourage players on the ground to get out of the way. The whole meaning of the word has changed because the sport has evolved so much.
That's funny. You're absolutely right. And it's not just rugby. Other sports have also changed dramatically their laws to be safer. So every sport is kind of moving in that direction. But you're right. Rugby has made huge steps when it changed from amateur to professional. There was significant changes. So you're right. The folks that have preconceived notions about rugby, you walk in the door, you say the word rugby, and they're like, "Oh, that barbaric sport." It's like, "Oh, come on, that's what it was. That's where it was 20 years ago." But even the laws that govern how you walk down the street in the United States of America have changed in 20 years anyway. There's things you just cannot do anymore. So everything evolves over time, and you're right. It's difficult when those people are the gatekeepers, and you have to convince them. How do you engage them when they have this preconceived notion? What are the things that you use to get those people on board? Because parents are a lot easier, and kids, man, if you tell kids, everybody gets to run with the ball. You're gonna play no matter what. Sorry, you weren't tall enough to be in the basketball team. We got a position for you. You weren't fast enough to be, in the football team or the soccer team. We got a position for you.
Yeah. Not only do we have a position, you're going to carry the ball.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's a perfect spot for you, right? It's That's a good one. I still can't get over like how the virtues and values that we can that we can tout as we're talking to parents in particular. I want to get back to more to the kids. I just wanted to like maybe appeal to us like what appeals to our kids that are playing now in high school, or what appealed to us when we were kids. Like I said earlier, like you come up to the table at lunch and somebody has a rugby flyer. And like, and what are they gonna say to a prospective athlete? Again, I think it's like it's so fun, we tackle and and we get dirty. And one of the things that wanted to say is like something about confidence. I mentioned confidence earlier, but a a story about a kid. I think the parents told me about this kid who was walking outside one of the fields, and he was carrying his rugby ball back from training. And the kid from school saw him and said, "Oh man, you play rugby?" And then like he just like his chest puffed up, and he walked with a sense of confidence. It's like there's sort of like a prestige or a confidence boost for kids who plays rugby, and I think that's important and appeals to a lot of us. But I wanted to talk and ask a little bit about the names, the funny names that we have for things, and how that's perceived by new players. And sort of as I recall, like how much fun it was to learn what a scrum and a ruck and a maul is. And for guys, like it's kind of funny that there was a position called hooker and flanker and fly half, and all these things were new and exciting and something that appealed to me. Is that something that you think helps recruit new players?
Yes and no. I think one of the key factors is pretty much what you talked about a little bit before about we have a position for you. So, like we said, we've kind of grown it to a form of professionalism where a coach will find the right spot for you on the field. And once that position clicks with that particular individual, they're just off with it. And then that's where that confidence comes from, too. I mean, I never played rugby until I got to college. I was just a wrestler growing up. But then I was a small guy. They're like, hey, you look pretty good for a hooker. You're going to be a hooker. So then I go home. Dad's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm playing rugby. He's like, what? Well, what do you play? I go, I play hooker. Hooker? What? What's a hooker? So something about me, something about you I don't know about, Brad? I'm like, no. But yeah, I mean, I've always been a small guy, but I mean, like you said, it's an opening and encouraging sport. And then they're like, oh, okay, you're a little small, but you're built and you keep on going. So you're playing hooker. I'm like, okay. And that's just how it went. And then I learned from the people that had more experience than me. And then that kind of elevated my confidence. But we also trained off the field together too. That was a key component as well. So I think that helps out as well.
Yeah,
I
you mean
think
like in the gym?
Yeah. So like, I mean, even if you practice 2 or 3 times a week in college, you're still hitting the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Might not always be the same players on your team hitting the gym because classes and kids have different schedules in college, but you always have a teammate that will spot you at the bench or help you with your squats or push you to work together to run that extra 5K to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're gonna
you know,
say-
I
sorry.
I think another good thing that we kind of touched on but didn't really get into uh, is well, first of all, obviously there's a spot for everyone, and when we're recruiting, generally these kids are familiar with other sports, so we're able to take the strengths of those sports and say how they'd fit in with rugby. And so for example, we get the soccer player, like, okay, it's just like soccer, it's nonstop, you're just running the whole time, you'll fit right in, it's a perfect sport for you. The wrestler, yeah, the breakdown, it's just like wrestling, perfect sport for you. You have the advantage. We get the football player. Yes, it's tackling nonstop. Perfect for you. Perfect thing for you. And the kid that's never played a sport, you tell them, no one knows what they're doing. It's new for everyone. It's perfect for you. And so then you get them all together, and they they get cohesive. Growing up, knowing and identifying with these different aspects of sport, they kind of it builds a new just like a new bond, because it is new, it is funny. You make fun of the hooker, you can do have all kinds of like new. It's a new experience, a new sport for everyone at one stage. So
I think the
Yeah.
language helps build that bond too. Like Chris was saying, it starts to become like you're in because you know the language of rugby. So you doesn't matter how good you are or how long you've played. If you know the language, you can have conversation with everybody there. And outsiders don't really know what you're talking about. They don't really get it when you're talking about the hooker went into touch, like right. Like I mean, outsiders don't know what you're talking about. The flanker did a scissor and then I looped him. Like outsiders don't know what you're talking about. So I think that also brings kind of helps teams gel, and especially kids who maybe didn't make it in another sport, or not necessarily didn't make it, but weren't as successful as maybe they would have liked. All of a sudden I'm in with these guys.
Yeah, and you know what, also the perception of the sport, I know we kind of think it as a negative thing, but if it's perceived as just like a violent sport, kids can think that's cool. They can bring them, like, give them more confidence if others perceive them in a violent sport, outsiders that don't understand it. So I mean,
Never say violent. Whenever somebody
well,
says violent, I always say aggressive.
Aggressive.
well,
It's an
I,
aggressive sport. We play hard.
Yeah.
We play to win. You're going to get banged up. We're not trying.
well, I'm talking about misconceptions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
One of the things that was fun for me, when I first started coaching at high school, I was coaching both boys and girls, and I loved it. And I coached both for 3 years, and I miss coaching boys, and it's for a variety of reasons sometimes. But I was struck by the fact that it's a very body positive experience for both boys and girls. And maybe it's something that girls are a little bit more aware of in a different way, but it's funny to see guys being really complimentary of each other's strengths. Like that skinny guy that's really tall is celebrated for being a good jumper, and the guy that's like wily and fast gets away from the guy that's like huge and can tackle anyone. Like there's so much room to celebrate, like a lot of different gifts on that field, and they naturally do it with each other, which is it's like a really awesome and positive experience. And that certainly happens. Like I was thinking, when we talk about like how you build a program and how kids continue to recruit each other, like when I hold interested player meetings, I primarily put veterans up there and have them talk about what it means to be a rugby player. And I was like struck the first time I did it by how many girls talked about how powerful this sport made them feel. How, people thought that they couldn't play rugby. They were like, "You're so tiny." And they were like, "Yeah, but I'm a badass." Like, it's like and other girls were like, my size is such an attribute in rugby. Like I get to do this and this. Like, it's such a really positive experience. No matter your gender, there's a lot of space to be really proud of what you offer. It's a big thing.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I completely agree with that.
One thing that like I don't know if I'm getting too logistical or tactical here, but like how do we bottle up some of these like that 1 minute speech that you just gave, Kate? Like how do you package that in where we can actually deliver it to you? The same thing with you, Shaggy. I love that, like, this sport's perfect for you, this sport's perfect for you. Like that was awesome. I just want to record it and just play it, play it at one of those I think you called it, Kate, a prospective player meeting. But like, I think one of the things we wanted to accomplish here today is like, okay, now we've got all these great ideas. Like what media can we package it in? Is it through social media? Is it through, like I said earlier, like, 'cause this is what I remember from college. Like there's just a bunch of kids at a lunch table saying like, hey, come sign up for rugby if you're interested, or you see a flyer on a bulletin board. But like, what is our media and our venue, especially for a program that hasn't started yet? How do you package some of this brilliance into making sure that the message is received by prospective players and then subsequently by prospective parents?
Honestly, like like if Myro could have a video of kids that already play, talking about their experience, I think it would be so compelling to both parents and to people in a position to start a program. Like I'm specifically thinking an athletic director, but because kids that come out of any of these programs in Massachusetts or Rhode Island, like no matter where you are, you're coming out feeling like you got something out of it. Even if you never pick up a rugby ball again, you stuck with it because you were getting something out of it, you know?
You know,
Yeah.
that's a
I think that
great idea. That is a fantastic idea because I've seen, and for other hobbies, we've made videos like that to sort of explain, hey, this is what we are, this is what we do. And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen, from a kid's perspective, I've seen, one kid kind of saying, to their YouTube screen, but something that's a little bit more sort of packaged up and has different, different body types, body sizes, genders, all that kind of stuff. That I think that would speak a lot. I think that'd be very useful.
well,
I'm gonna see if I can find one. I haven't seen one yet.
let me just jump in. So I know Jennifer's working on that for the girls rugby
Oh,
recruitment.
nice.
Right, getting why girls play rugby, and we're trying to pack. She's gonna get it, send it out to the teams and get responses. And I think it's tremendously powerful. Like the 10-second TikToks, and just kind of package them together as a recruitment short recruitment video. But yeah, I mean the kid's perspective is and like I think that is the best thing. Honestly, it's just a testimonial.
I can't wait to hear how when that comes out. Do we have any more details on that? I mean,
Well,
I don't want promises or dates or anything, but
no, I mean everything on that front's a work in progress. But I mean, there's nothing to stop that from going. Once that initiative starts to go from boys and girls, and kind of just kind of pressure. I tell everyone to pressure their kids and get one TikTok out, and then just curate it in one place.
yep.
Well, and even I will say one thing that's interesting is I was thinking primarily of my graduated players, excuse me, simply because of like liability issues in terms of getting minors to do that. But I have so many graduates that would talk for more than 10 seconds. So you'd have to cut them off about how much they love rugby, So that's a brilliant idea. I love that. Please send me.
I would love to have them.
Yeah, that's you, and also for Amy too, right? Or the other players in the league too, Kate. Like I think it'd be great if we, and just like you said, you could have a kid talk for a minute, but maybe Jennifer can grab 10 seconds of it, the best 10 seconds, just with the kid said, "I play rugby because it's fun," or "I play rugby because I feel powerful," or "I play rugby because I got into college," or whatever it might be. Yeah, we could just snip out, a passionate clip. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. If I can add 2 seconds. Hi, I'm jumping in and off. I'm Jennifer. I am the Massachusetts Youth Rugby Organization's Girls Rugby Developmental Chairperson, which is a lot of words to say. We need to get girls in this sport. It is absolutely amazing. What I found with the TikTok initiative is not necessarily high school girls, but the middle school girls, the most powerful thing that they have said so far was the body type. I fit in no matter what. I've changed so much from 6th to 8th grade, but here I am, and I'm welcome, and I'm necessary. That is so powerful for a girl who's going through so much in such a short amount of time, to say I'm still necessary. Like I'm still more than needed in my position. My position's changed as I've grown. Everyone's welcoming. This is like I feel like I belong. We're all going through things together. It's that intangible that keeps girls feeling very connected and proud of themselves as they're going through a transition phase in their life. And that's something that you can't put a dollar figure on. That's so powerful and necessary.
Yeah, really cool.
Absolutely.
Really cool. I'm glad to hear that.
That's incredible to hear.
And it's so funny to me because it's one of those things that I think like girls have words for, that sometimes boys don't have words for, but are exactly like, it's also very important to them as players. So it's like both pieces, like it's super key for girls. It's like a piece that girls talk all the time, and even like in my high school classes about like what it means to be a soccer player, and there's a specific body type that goes with it, and the idea that there's not one factor about what you look like that fits into your identity as a rugby player is really key. But I also think that's something that I don't think a lot of guys have words for or would discuss in that way, but does matter to them.
Well,
You know?
we do in a certain way, and and you know what? I think this is a great transition here of the things that you would do to engage kids and parents when you're starting a program, and then versus the things that you would say do. What are the components to engaging kids and parents continuing forward? And I think culture. Is one of the things that really cements a program's success in moving forward. And I think what we're talking about here, I think for a new player, they would love to hear this. I think it's very empowering to hear this, or it's very curious to hear this. But I think for established players, it would be empowering to know it and hear it over and over and over again. And I'll share with you, the kind of the way Shaggy and kind of the way Chris kind of just sort of reiterate sometimes what you want to instill in your club. I've reiterated this, and I've reiterated it as a response to something that I do not like. And this is the one thing that I'll say be careful of. Um, I'm sick and tired of hearing backs make fun of forwards and forwards make fun of backs. Now, I think that's something that's going away. But when I went to college, and a little bit still at senior side, um, there was it was friendly, but at times I wondered exactly how friendly it was. The whole kind of friction between forwards and backs. That the forwards are the slow, dim-witted. The backs are the super prima donnas, pretty and smart. And as soon as I started hearing any talk about that, I immediately put my foot down and said, okay, that's all very funny, but we're not going to have that in this club. There's a space for, there's a role and there's a job for everybody. An inside center's body is different than an outside center's body. And you want to talk to me about the open side wing versus the blind side wing and the fullback, just show me a fly half, there's going to be great variety even in the backs of those roles. Obviously, in forwards, a prop versus a hooker, I mean, or a second row, that your jumper, they're going to be extremely different from one another. But that's the one thing that I would recommend. If you've already gone from, you've got your club started and you use some of these ideas to engage the kids and parents, and you want to keep engagement going for the kids and the parents, you can take this to the bank over and over and over and over and over again. And every time you start hearing a player making fun of the forwards and the forwards making fun of the backs, you can say, keep it light, or keep it honest, because there's a space for everybody. And everybody needs to be proud of their players, forwards to backs, and backs to forwards. Does that make sense?
Can I tell you two reflections on that?
Yeah, please.
So one, coaching at the high school level, and maybe some of the other people who coach youth in high school will agree with this. My players don't know anything about that.
Okay, good.
About backs making fun of forwards and forwards making fun of backs and stuff. They, the only thing they know about rugby are the things that I and my assistant coaches expose them to. So that whole division between forwards and backs, that's a very old school rugby thing. Modern rugby, you talk to modern rugby players, if you don't have a really high def TV, you can't tell if that's a 13 or a 4 carrying the ball.
Yeah.
Like they all look the same. So that in my youth level is not really something that happens too much. My other reflection on it is the last time I took over coaching my men's club. I retired from playing, and our coach left, and we needed a coach. So I took over. I'm like, all right, look, now that I'm not playing though, I'm gonna really coach, like not just kind of guide and be nice to everybody. And so I was putting in my program, and after about 2 weeks, some of the backs actually were like, "Hey, when are we splitting into forwards and backs? Like, why are the forwards doing all of our passing drills and like ruining it? We need to get the skill players separate and work on our skills." And I turned to them like, "Get the skill players separate? You mean the forwards? You want to get the forwards separate so the forwards can work on their skills?" And they're like, "No, the backs are the skill players." I'm like, no, they're not. That's a very American football thing where the running backs and wide receivers are the skill players. Like, no, they're not. In rugby, in modern rugby, forwards catch and pass and run and sometimes even kick. I've never seen backs scrum or do a lineout. The forwards are the ones with the skills that you don't have. You don't have any skills the forwards don't have, which kind of shut him up pretty quick. But also, I told him, I'm like, look, I would much rather break up even a coaching staff as an offensive coach and a defensive coach rather than a forwards coach and a backs coach. I think if you, in modern rugby, if you look at it as forwards and backs and you draw that line there, whether it's imaginary or not, it's going to hamper your success. The idea that forwards don't need to pass, like, dude, that is gone. You need to embrace that idea. That is gone. Forwards don't need to run. That is gone. Backs don't need to tackle. Backs don't need to ruck. That's gone. You're not going to have a lot of success if that's one of the values your team is holding, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well said.
Great.
One of the things we do, I don't know how many people do awards at the end of a game, like, player of the game or whatever, hit maker. We do something that's player of the game and hit maker, but we also do like back and forward, like a back and a forward award. The other player group votes for the back of the game. So it's like the forwards vote for the backs and the backs vote for the forwards. And the reason we set it up that way was to promote exactly what you're talking about, Matt. Like, every back should be appreciative of what the forwards are doing for them, and every forward should be appreciative of what the backs are doing. And so we practice that by, actually appreciating them, you know?
I like that. I wish I would
Good,
keep it in my mind on game day to do more of that stuff.
Yep. And those rituals enforce, engagement. You're building culture. You're building the morals that you want, to instill in the behavior you want to have. I don't know. I know it's big in college. It's big in senior side. The shirt ceremony, is that something that's done in high school at all? I know. I mean, you probably don't spend as much time together as in college or in senior side. So is that something that's done at all in high school level?
I do it, yes, but I do it right before a game.
Oh, okay.
So it's like kids know who like the 23 person roster is, and then we hand out the jerseys either on the bus or like in a classroom. If it's a home game, it's in a classroom before the game. We'll hand out the jerseys, which is unique for kids. They've never really experienced that facet, but yes, we do that.
I'll be honest, I've never been part of a team that did it, that it was like a big deal. Like my men's club, we've had different coaches who want to do it and other coaches who didn't care, just everybody have a jersey on. So I've never really been a part of a team where that was a big deal. So I don't do that as a big deal. I've had years where my captains have asked to do it, and I'm like, all right, you guys can do it. That's fine. But when my team started to grow and we got varsity status, I had 70 players on my roster. The idea of collecting 23 jerseys and washing them and then having another 23 and another 23 and then some more, like, oh my God. I just ordered 73 jerseys, numbers 1 through 73. And so like my captain might be a number 8 wearing jersey number 54 which I know is very not rugby tradition, but I feel like sometimes you just got to do what works.
I need to learn that because I'm doing a ton of laundry.
Yeah, like I've said in the past, I started coaching in 03, and so for the first 3 years, thank the good Lord. I mean, I'm a 22-year-old guy. I was not even doing my own laundry. I had parents, moms who were like, "I'll do that, I'll do that," and I was like, "Oh, this is great." And then I got a stretch where like my kids were like, "My mom's definitely not doing that," or "We don't even have a laundry in our house," and so I ended up doing it for years, and which way back before Myro, when we were playing 3 games a week, really murder to wash 40 jerseys 3 times a
Oh,
week.
yeah.
Like, oh my Lord. But then it got to the point where I wanted my team to be more like what is recognized as a normal varsity procedure in the school. You know, none of the other varsity teams take jerseys away and hand jerseys out, and you know, I didn't want kids from the outside being like, oh look, they don't even have enough jerseys for everybody. So I just went and did what football and soccer and all of the other sports do. And like, all right, everybody has a jersey. This is the jersey you get at the beginning of the year. You get it all year long. I'm going to take it back at the end of the year. And I think that's kind of a unique, as a high school varsity program, kind of a unique problem and solution. But
It's
Yeah,
certainly
especially if
one that
there's
I've struggled with.
it emotionally hurt to order jersey number 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 and 70. It emotionally hurt,
wow.
but I got over it real quick.
That's funny. That's funny. All right, so let's continue with the topic of engaging kids and parents in an already established club.
Actually, can I bring up an idea that we haven't mentioned? Although I know we've said it in the past. For
Sure.
me, one of the really most important parts of recruiting is finding that high character player to do the recruiting. You know, kids listen to kids more and more since social media has become more prominent in life. Kids listen to kids. You know, when I tell kids like, "Oh my God, you'll have so much fun! You'll have so much fun!" Like, yeah, they hear it, but maybe it doesn't register. But when their buddy's like, "Dude, you got to come do this. It'll be awesome," they come. You know, so I really, and obviously when you're starting a program, this is tough unless you have that 1 or 2 kids who are really the driving force. But once you have kids, even if they're not high personality kids, like tell them like, guys, talk your friend into coming. We're gonna have like a bring a buddy practice on Tuesday. So we're gonna do basic stuff because I want every one of you to bring one kid that's never played before. You know, that type of thing to help grow it. And if half of those new kids stick, that's a massive win.
So that's
That's a
one
great
thing.
idea.
That's one thing, to bring a buddy, bring somebody that hasn't played rugby before. And that's easy. Everybody has, every kid out there has one friend they can get on the hook for coming to practice once. So that's a great idea for engaging kids and parents in an established groups, in established clubs. So firing off some more ideas or things that you do or have heard of or you want to do or you've done, you have some success with, sticking with, I've got a club, it's established, engaging kids and parents. Do we want to do a little bit of a rapid fire and throw out some ideas?
Swag.
Yeah,
Excellent.
get balls out in everyone's hands.
Balls, t-shirts, and sweatshirts.
What about social media? How do y'all use social media? Whether it be Twitter or something like that, because rugby has the coolest pictures of any sport, right? Whether it's a try or a line out, or it's very photogenic. Do we use social media effectively to sort of get the word out there, and our ADs sending out messages saying like, "Hey, look, this person scored a try this weekend in a game," or even off season? Are there ways to use social media to sort of maybe show people how cool it is? And I'm back to like the muddy picture of kids in a muddy game in the spring. But yeah, something that says something that sort of captures the spirit of what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, we have a team. We have a team Instagram. What's kind of fun about that is like kids can take pictures and share it with like the coaches run the Instagram, but they can share photos with us and we'll like post things um, as a club. And I also think like we do, I mean, the things that matter to kids are exactly what you're saying, Chris. Like the muddy practices, like there's something so oddly satisfying and like it makes kids so proud to be like, yeah, the track team canceled practice, but we're out here. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yep.
Practicing
and
this
so there's
every time. Practice.
yeah.
Everybody else cancels, and we're running around. You can't even see the kids. You can't see the far side winger. Love it.
And they're like, take a picture, take a picture. And it's like, yeah, of course. Like, let's put this out there. This is amazing. So yeah, I think that gets shared on social media a lot. Like just things that they're excited about get shared. And that's really nice because then they can share it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
I was going to say one thing that we do is, you know, like there are pieces because we're a single school program. There's like a activities fair for students. And since like we transitioned into being varsity programs, you know, like not a lot of varsity programs have, I'm trying to think, a table set up for that. But since we still call ourselves a club and it's a boys and girls club, you know, we have both teams set up at the same table and it's just a spot for them to sign up, but they get to like show video of themselves playing. It's such a like nice high school moment to be like, sign up here, get a piece of candy, watch us play rugby. Like that's very quintessentially high school.
Yeah, and I think it's cool, and I think also like maybe more so in rugby than other sports where the girls side and the boys side will get together, right? There's it seems like they're more connected than I've seen in other sports. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's wishful thinking, but that's been my observation. There's a lot of connection between those, and that I think appeals to a lot of high school kids.
For sure, I think every club is. Or most of the clubs that have both boys and girls programs really work to try and put their stuff together, their kids together, but also their packaging together, if that makes sense, like how to package the programs, which is good.
Similar to that, but on the community club, the Barbarians, you know, we don't have, you know, we don't we don't set up a table the way you do in high school, but we do have a town day, and that's been pretty successful for us. You know, a lot of towns have a town day, and they'll let you, you know, if you coordinate with them, they'll give you a table space, you know, wherever it's happening. And I know the Barbarians have done that a couple of years, and you know we've had a lot of fun, and I think we've used that as recruitment, not necessarily engagement to keep the players that are already engaged. I mean, we do. Actually, I take it back. They were able to go and be a part of it, so they got to stand there shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, we do rugby. So that was that was engaging for them, and it was also a recruiting opportunity. So not necessarily engagement for the kids and the parents in an established club, but it's similar to what you were talking about, except we do it during town day.
Yeah, I would say, if you're not school based, get in touch with your local rec department. They all have catalogs of what programs they offer, and get listed in their catalog. Towards the end, a lot of times they'll have, it's not town soccer, but it's the local soccer club and the local lacrosse club and the local baseball club. Get listed in there. Get listed in the ones for the surrounding towns. We've also done things like, there's an Irish festival. We go and put up a booth there sometimes. Get seen, really, anywhere. Get seen.
Yeah, to that point, we were doing the parade for a long time, just club parade. It was the St. Patrick's Day parade in Scituate, and that was great. It just being a visible team walking around, giving the kids an opportunity to be proud and be visible is awesome. Awesome for recruitment and retention.
That is awesome. So cool.
Does anybody do any sort of camp? I think some sports, especially in the summer, will have a camp, and I know that our season isn't typically until the spring. But is there a chance to get kids like indoctrinated and sort of tossing the ball around and maybe getting familiar with some of the terms we use just by going to a camp? Is that something that anybody's tried or employed yet?
I will say I have been trying desperately to get into coaching at the youth like summer camp. We have a summer sports camp in Belmont. And it's like, I think grades, I don't know, 2 through 8. So it's a wide variety of kids. But I'm like, I just want 1 week or 2 weeks of rugby, and all non-contact because they have flag football and they have other things. So like they finally took us on and said yes, they would let me coach for a week or 2. And then there was like, we had a building project that was accepted, and so all of our fields are a mess and the buildings are being torn up over the summer, and so they had to essentially be like, we can't take programs right now. But I think that's amazing, and I've specifically been targeting it at Belmont, but I think more towns have like a youth summer program that would be kind of a key place for some rugby programs to start working on kids.
Yeah, we're working on it.
All right. It sounds like we've already been at this for a little while.
Yeah.
Do we want to throw any last thoughts out? Engaging kids and parents. That could mean getting new kids in. That could mean making sure that they stay involved. Any last things we want to throw out there? Because
Yeah, I really want to wrap up, but I do have one question that I think we left answered. Like, besides what Matt said earlier about a parent meeting when you already sort of have the kid on the hook, like what venue, what forum do we have to actually talk to parents? Has it been just social media and pamphlets? Do we speak to them through the kids, or has somebody come up with a solution where we have ways to communicate, especially our values, to parents?
I mean,
I will say, oh, I'm so sorry, Shaggy, you go.
yeah, I was just gonna say, well, I'm terrible at directly talking to the parents. So what I do is I just try to include them in the recruitment process in general. So when I'm recruiting the kid, I make it knowing that I'm also recruiting the parent, because I'm expecting they're gonna be taking up their time to go to the games and whatnot, and and I let them know that they'll be part of the culture, and so their values basically going to be part of our values now. So
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of handle it.
Gotcha. Jeff Karras mentioned something a few weeks ago that he sort of has a paper, written to sort of that describes some of this. And Matt, you mentioned that, about the primer and then some additional information you give to the parents once they're in. But even if we had just a post, something on our websites or on social media, just for someone to go, for a parent to go to say, hey, this is what we're about. If we could just sort of send them to this podcast actually and say, give us a chance to talk about the values, because there's a lot more that than meets the eye. I think with your first reaction, you don't think about all the things we talked about earlier about being a welcoming and confidence builder and hard work, and about getting back up after you've been knocked down, and all the great things about rugby that makes our kids better people. And we've got to find a way to effectively communicate that to parents. It's too valuable to miss out on. And maybe it's just something we need to create, just a flyer or pamphlet or a white paper, a manifesto, whatever it might be.
It's funny. I was going to say that there's I can think of 2 like anecdotal things. One being, I I had a game, like a girls' game, and the boys' team showed up essentially after practice to watch it. And so there was like, 20 or so, more than 20, something like that, kids in the stands, and they were, rowdy, like, after practice, excited, chatting, like yelling at each other, a little roughhousing. And the boys' coaches had also come to the game and were sitting in the stands with the boys. Um, and a parent of a newer player, I can only assume, turned around and maybe made some kind of a comment about how loud they were being or something like that. And when I heard about it in the aftermath, I was like, man, that is a person who has kind of, like I have a parent email list, as I'm sure we all do. And in the aftermath, I wrote an email kind of being like, hey, one of the beautiful things about this game is that the girls are going to show up for the boys team and the boys team is going to show up for the girls team. And it means so much to have that kind of peer support for the athletic talent on the field. And like, that is a piece that I will address head on with parents, if that makes sense. And it's because it is that piece where it's like, you can understand if that's your daughter out on the field or that's your son out on the field and someone's being loud and rowdy in the stands, that you're kind of like, have some respect. And at the same time, that kid is showing respect because they're a 15-year-old who showed up for your daughter's game, even if they're a little louder than you want them to be. So that's something that like I always kind of celebrate and very publicly celebrate as that we are one club. And I do that via email. The second thing that we established in the last year, and it was a new thing, was we created parents who understood the rules of rugby, who had like maybe played before, or like we have a lot of parents that are from England or somewhere like that, and we would give them a hat, like an orange hat, and it was like, if you know nothing about rugby, none of the rules, go sit by the guy in the orange hat because he's going to talk about all the rules through the game. And it was really helpful because it like made parents that felt lost have a spot, a touchstone to like show up to. And so they felt more anchored in the sport and they were learning as the season went on. And so it was like, it created a community in the stands as well. And that was something that like took us years to figure out. And we only got 1 year of doing it, but we'll pick it up when we come back. So those are my two things.
That's a great idea.
That's
I like the hat.
Great idea. That is
Really good.
such a good idea.
Genius.
And it's recruiting like a parent, right? Was that just a parent that knew the rules?
Yeah, someone who already like wanted to be involved, and you could be like, "Hey, would you mind being the orange hat guy for this game?" And that dad's like, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to." And it's so helpful because they already know the rules and they can hear people being like, "What was that?" behind them, but they don't want to impose.
Yep.
If you have the hat, people are willing to ask a question of you and you feel empowered to share your knowledge.
Yep.
It creates a community in the stands.
Yep. So
That's a great idea.
That's amazing because one episode that I would love to do at some point in the future is how to engage parents. Like how do you drag parents in? Some of them are like they're sitting on the sidelines and you can see them. They're waiting for you to call on them. They're like, ooh, I know the answer. I know the answer. They want to be pulled in. Like I need somebody to stand here and put their arms out. And slap a child if they get too close to you. And all the dads are like, I'll slap a kid. I'll slap a kid, right? So like all the myriad ways that we need to engage parents, bring them into helping at practices, not in practices, but off screen, and then in something like this. I want to have an episode for that, and this is just fantastic. I love this idea because it's engaging the parents. That's awesome. All right. Anything else, guys?
I got to go to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
good.
is pretty tired. Okay, folks, I absolutely love spending this time with you guys. So I'm so psyched that you're continuing to do this. So I want to thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and for anybody that's listening out there, trying to figure out how to start a new club or how your coach starting to be a coach or whatever. I hope these things are as useful to you guys as it's been to us. So I think let's go ahead and call it. You guys, thank you so much. Let's